Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News. The World Championship Grand Final is upon us. A rematch of earlier in the tournament. A phenomenal series last night between Loud and Evil Genius to determine which team is going to make it all the way. Demon1, Ethan, especially with monster performances, as we shall dive into, but also lots of discussion on Rostermania. Big rumours as to what some of these teams are up to, and Sentinels continue, it seems, to dominate in practice behind the scenes. Very much enjoyed to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. First of all, Premiere was announced to be officially launching August the 29th, is effectively going to try and be the tier 3 ecosystem where players can go from regular matchmaking really, and if you bounce your way through, you get up from open to intermediate to advanced to elite and then to contender, then you can kind of earn your spot to get up to tier 2, and then from there try and win ascension, get to tier 1. So I think this is a healthy way to construct the ecosystem, and I'm happy that they're going for it. Now, some other comments on the day weren't quite so good as far as I'm concerned from Leo Farrier. He's at it again, of course. So he was responding to the format criticism. We saw some criticism from especially the likes of Chronicle, saying that, well, we've got 7 months in a row of non-stop jam-packed action for the pros, especially the ones that are competing at all the big events and qualify for the international tournaments, and saying, look, it's too packed, we need more time to rest. So Leo Farrier's response is, the big challenge is that we're always going to have the best teams complain more and give us feedback that the calendar is too packed and there's no time to rest. We're thinking about how we're going to put the best teams in the world more in affluence and give them a bigger stage, more opportunity to play. To which a challenge, there's no perfect answer. Now, I think the better answer would be, because I don't really have much sympathy, to be honest, for the players. They have to play too much, you know. They get paid to play a game at the end of the day, and sure, they might like some days and weeks off, but that's not always how it goes in regular sports. So I'm not really so bothered about that, but what I am bothered about is when you've got 7 months on, and then you've got 5 months off with nothing, because the players do get rest time, but they get just way too much for no reason after the season is over. You look at the season, and I know other players pointed this out, like, if you don't qualify for the World Championship, you're playing 6 months of VALORANT, maybe 5 months of VALORANT, and then you're taking 6-7 months off. I don't really understand why they wouldn't just say, you know what, instead of doing a 7-month jam-packed season, let's kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone and do a 9-month season where we go from right at the start of January into September, potentially even like right at the end of September, shall we say, and then during the season have, you know, 2 weeks off here, 2 weeks off there, and go from, you know, the same amount of play potentially. I'd like 1 more Masters event personally, but whatever. Like, and Chronicle would say, well, we're playing all the time. What about just, you know, have certain parts of the season where there's 2 weeks off, and those kind of 2 weeks are almost designed to allow teams to make roster changes if they want to, kind of like a 2-week roster change period, which extends the season, makes things interesting. You don't have to put crazy amount of more money in, but it would mean that it kind of addresses the criticism from the fans that the season's too short, and then addresses criticism from the pros they don't get any break time. So, you know, I think there's better ways they could do it than they're currently doing, but obviously I don't have all the information behind the scenes and how they need to structure the league. There's more restrictions in place than we have access to when we're theorizing what the best possible format could be. Now let's talk Rostermania. People were saying for sometimes send Aspas, which you know, you never know, it could still be possible, but the way the tournament has progressed, it seems less likely. It's not for sure that Loud will stay together. We will discuss in a second what their head coach says, though, that implies they will be looking to potentially do so, and they had a successful enough run, they might consider running it back for next season, but I wouldn't rule out changes to even teams that made it quite far. SK Rossi is going to be gone, it seems, from Global Esports. He actually started off the season really promising, and then, yeah, wasn't so good shortly after that. So apparently they're going to explore replacements for SK Rossi on Global Esports, that kind of Indian team, of course, technically. This is another big one as well. Rumours emerging that CNED is no longer going to be a part of Na'Vi's starting roster. Either they're moving on for whatever reason, or they just don't think that it's working out with CNED either from a comms perspective, or, you know, Sydney was pretty good for them, to be fair, but I do wonder if there's anything in this in terms of whether our main man, Artis, could return, right? Because we believe Artis is going to be a free agent from NRG, and therefore, possibly for whatever reason, Na'Vi think, you know, when we were FPX, Artis was a big part of that. So I think there's a pretty reasonable chance that Artis might well return to the FPX team, or of course, that's now called Na'Vi. So Cena will have to find another spot, which is definitely interesting in terms of what team's going to pick him up, because somebody certainly will. Now, this also from James of F as of yesterday, some further scrim outcomes that we have seen, well, I haven't seen, but he's seen happen behind the scenes. Now, according to Drew Spark, who I believe watches these videos sometimes, but I couldn't see any tweets from him on this topic, so I'm not sure if this was a private conversation. But Drew Spark apparently said, on Sentinel's assistant coach, they've had multiple trials during this practice week. Last night, they played a couple of games, 14-10 lost to PRX, and then a 16-5 at one point. They were leading over PRX, which again is very impressive. Let's not forget the team that goes in as the heavy favourites today to win the entire World Championship. Now, it's not all about results, not all about numbers, but this idea that they've had multiple trials surely confirms that they played with FNS at some point. They may not be playing with FNS every single day, but you know, if they're doing multiple trials, and we're pretty sure that Sentinels were practicing and doing very well at the same time that NRG was scrimming without FNS, it implies they must have played with him at some point, I would say. Want to be all the time. We don't know who's cooking up these incredible scrim results, but definitely one big thing to look at there. And also there was this from Something, who, look, PRX is going to make a roster change after this season. Jing has to go to do mandatory military service in Singapore. So, you know, I'm not saying Something's going to leave yet, of course. Something's been a revelation for this team, but he did say that in, you know, a couple of years, things happen, and he's definitely not ruling out even playing in China, or certainly playing in North America. So that's another kind of spicy storyline as well. And also, just as we transition now into the discussion on champions, George Geddes did say that it wasn't just, it was only PRX that said they got these warnings for doing the teabagging. Demon1 apparently also got the warnings as well. Now, look, I don't think anyone should be getting warnings for this, but I know we discussed that in some detail yesterday, but apparently both teams will be getting warnings. Now, you know, and of course both teams played each other in the grand finals. It's actually really exciting to see, because these are, if there's any team that is willing to kind of give back some of the trash talk to evil geniuses, PRX are kind of that team. So it's pretty perfect in terms of a storyline perspective. I don't imagine anyone's going to get, you know, suspended or disqualified if any teabagging goes down at the grand finals, because I certainly hope that it does. But let's dive into these games, and this I thought was funny as well, actually, on the roster stuff, because Durka says, with the loss yesterday, extremely proud of what we accomplished as a team. Chet says, hey, like, what are these headphones? And I think these are the Sony XM5s, as Durka says. Can't hear the haters, and battery lasts longer than the NRG roster together. So yeah, pretty funny stuff. Catching a massive stray Chet out of nowhere here, but also kind of confirming that, you know, big changes are coming, it seems, to the NRG roster. Now, let's talk about this mad series last night. It's also great as well, and I only kind of realized this 2 days ago. I don't think I mentioned it yet, that, of course, today's a Saturday, and the finals are today on Saturday, which to me I think is really good. Based on the way the time zones work, it just makes a lot of sense, actually, to do the finals on a Saturday, especially for Asian viewers. They can watch on, you know, Sunday early morning rather than Monday early morning when they've got to go into work. So I think this is a really good decision here by Riot, actually, and I'm happy that they've done so. So it was EG versus Loud. It's funny, right, because it's not long ago that Loud 13 ODG. You know, it feels like only, well, it was only a few months ago, to be fair, but that was when EG were the biggest laughing stock and Loud were the best team, arguably, well, certainly in the Americas, and not far off being the best team in the world. But game one, I mean, to be fair, game one was crazy. It was a ridiculous overtime. Evil Geniuses eventually get the victory. Most of the other maps were pretty comfortable, actually. Doesn't mean the series wasn't very exciting, though. I mean, look at these shots from Demon1. Man, what a player Demon1 is, you gotta say. Like, this guy he dropped 101 kills this series, first of all, which we haven't seen before internationally, I believe. I think Demon1 dropped like 99, didn't he, in Tokyo, one of the series they played there. So he broke his own personal record on this one, and he had like a 41% headshot rate here, which is just absolutely absurd given the circumstances. So EG quickly go up 2-0, but then the next two maps, Loud came to play. EG pretty much collapsed these next two maps. It wasn't even particularly close. Com was, again, making some absolutely fantastic plays. This guy, I know people say, like, commits zero mistakes or whatever, right? They're calling Com right now, and I don't blame him, because this guy's always on the flank. I don't know if PRX will learn to predict it a little bit more come the championship grand finals, because even Zekin was tweeting out, like, look, I could be a coach easily. I would just say, oh, Com's going to be on the flank in the clutch, and, you know, turn around, and maybe Asfa should have turned around here, but still, incredible performance. So it did get a bit competitive there, but Loud eventually got over the line, and then the split was not even close. Loud win this one. All the momentum's in their favor. There was a poll I saw on Twitter, and like 70% of people were saying, yep, the reverse sweep is going to be coming through. But if you've remembered what Loud did against Fnatic earlier this year, it was a similar story, wasn't it? Where they almost pulled off the reverse sweep. They did a bit of a fake comeback, and then when they got to map 5, and look, let's be honest, Loud have played so many maps this tournament. They, after losing early on, had to make the crazy run all the way through losers. They had to do it in the groups as well after they lost to PRX, and they've played so many maps this tournament compared to like every other team. I think Evil Geniuses probably have played the second most maps of anyone, so I imagine a bit of fatigue set in after 5 maps of this series, but Evil Geniuses had enough here, and this to me was the biggest round really. So they just lost the pistol, I believe, right? And then here comes Com with 1-2 massive sheriff shots that then eventually win this round for, I mean, look at this even kill as well that Jorgemo gets to close out the rounds. And that was a huge turning point there for Evil Geniuses. So despite the fact that the maps weren't like immensely close, the momentum of the series was all over the place. Evil Geniuses, what a team. And yes, we will get brand new world champions. Of course, Loud, they won it last year. There was a chance that Salak and Les and these guys could run it back and do it again. Gotta give massive credit to Ethan as well, because look at some of these numbers here in the series. Ethan just about had less assists than kills, but going into map 5, Ethan had more assists than he had kills. He was averaging, I mean, like, if we just look at the assists per map here, Ethan map 1 had 21 assists. I mean, this guy is just the best initiator in the world right now. Incredible stuff. Demon1 was actually on the chamber briefly as well here. I think it was on the bind. Yeah, he was on the chamber, which is pretty exciting. Maybe a sign of things to come for the meta going into next year. But yeah, 13-8 in the ends after 13-7, 13-8 from Loud. And then it was 13-4 actually. Lotus was dominant. And pretty funny because after, I think it was a pick for Loud, right? And yeah, Loud picked it. And Boostio made a face of the camera being like, are you sure you want to do this, guys? And yeah, so they certainly proved that was a bad idea on their part. But yeah, Demon1, 101 kills, man. What a performance. Commiserations to Loud. Great series from Aspas again. But they will be departing the tournament. Demon1 says keep hating. And it just sets up so many great storylines for the grand finals of this one. Obviously, Loud, unfortunate for them to go home. Great performance, honestly, from this team. Given the drama around this team, supposedly before the tournament began, for them to make the run they did, massively impressive. And their coach says that sometimes changing rosters, changing staff is not the solution, but it sets up this as the grand finals for today. It's either going to be the fairy tale ending for one of two situations. Either it's the fairy tale ending for PRX. Jin gets the victory in the send-off for him as a player, which would be incredible to see. And they are the pretty significant favourites, because not only did they beat Evil Geniuses earlier on, but also they have the big advantage, which is pretty significant, that Evil Geniuses found out the hard way in Tokyo when Fnatic just banned Pearl, banned Fracture, and EG just didn't have any maps they were good at relative to Fnatic. PRX can kind of do the same thing again. They get to choose the maps. That's a pretty big edge for PRX. I would say this series is 65% in PRX's favour, but it's definitely not guaranteed. And Evil Geniuses, it's a fairy tale run for them as well, from getting 13-0'd by Loud however long ago to being, the most heavily criticised team in North America and the one that nobody wanted to join at the start of the year. Ye was joking around before the season even began, given all his offers. He was like, yeah, I'm not going to join EG, but here they are. And two teams, of course, that aren't afraid to give each other a bit of flack. So, I think this has worked out perfectly in terms of the grand finals. And yeah, roughly 10 hours, and when I'm recording, this is going to be going live. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.